Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are carrying on Hijikata's route. Amagiri was just about to assassinate us to get us out of the way and get Kazuma to behave, which really wasn't a very good plan, I think. But oh well, Hijikata has shown up to rescue us, I believe. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story.
Giving up so easily? A real Shinsengumi warrior doesn't stop fighting until they're dead. The only thing on your mind right now should be how you're going to outthink this chump.
That voice! It couldn't be! But it is! My head shot up just in time to see Hijikata leap through the air and land a sword blow on Amagiri's arm.
You... Only thought I'd be fighting the Imperial Army out here. Guess I'll be taking care of a demon, too.
Hijikata stood before us, his hair pure white. His red eyes shone with desire for battle, and they were fixed on Amagiri.
Did your battle with Kazuma teach you nothing?
Oh, you're nowhere near as strong as Kazuma.
A fury is a mere echo of a true demon. No matter how powerful you may think yourself, you cannot defeat us. Never know till you try. You know, they say if you're trying to fight a swordsman barehanded, you have to be 3 times as good as he is.
You're just about to learn a thing or two about Amagiri here.
I see. Only bloodshed will satisfy you. Very well. I shall be your opponent.
He gave Hijikata a short, polite bow and dropped himself easily into a ready stance. I love you, Amagiri. Why can't we date him? Even without the eyebrows, I still love him. Hijikata's Izumi no Kami Kanesada flickered through the air, little more than a streak of silver. Amagiri blocked with one hand and dodged away from the flickering blade.
What?
Before Hijikata could react, Amagiri's foot drove itself into his stomach. Hijikata's face twisted in pain, and he staggered back a step. Perhaps it was his fury-born strength, or perhaps it was simply adrenaline, but he surged back and leapt toward Amagiri. His sword leapt forward to bury itself in Amagiri's chest. Blood spurted out, splashing across Hijikata's face. He jerked back, pulling his sword free. No sooner was it out than the wound began to close. Guess it wasn't his heart.
Right. You guys heal quick, don't you? So, it's straight through the heart or not at all, huh? Guess it would be too easy otherwise.
His sword shone with fresh blood.
I've got you figured out, though. I know how you move. You're tough, but you're not impossible.
You think you've seen all his tricks already? Drenched in blood, Hijikata looked more like a monster than a human being. His eyes were wide and hungry, and there was something terrifying and inhuman about his expression as he whipped his sword through the air. Amagiri leapt back, Hijikata's sword almost catching his fingers as he did so. Jabs and parries, feints and counterfeints, the battle flowed back and forth between them like a living thing, its changes moving too fast for any mortal eyes to track. Neither man showed any sign of tiring, even as they dodged and attacked in many ways that would have been unthinkable to any human. Even in the middle of that maelstrom of death and violence, I could see Hijikata smiling. The smell of blood hanging heavy in the air, and his grin spoke of a fury's lust for death. They leapt apart and regarded one another for several long moments before Amagiri spoke.
I never imagined that a fury could match me in battle. You are unexpected. This power of yours, what will you do with it? What?
Hijikata's tone was a mixture of surprise and disdain.
Protect those I care for. What other reason could there be for wanting power? Those you care for. Would you count the Tokugawa shogunate among that number? No, this is bigger than the shogunate. They don't even compare.
Aww. Amagiri closed his eyes and was silent. What had gotten into him? He's a little bit sentimental. Why had he stopped fighting? Then, this was the perfect time to strike. I reached down slowly and picked up my sword I dropped only minutes before. I made my move forward when a hand on my shoulder stopped me.
Stay back.
But Hijikata is going to...
That demon no longer thirsts for blood. This battle is over.
What? I turned back to Hijikata and the demon.
Demons are not meant to involve themselves in the world of humans. Now that you have become a fury, you belong in the shadows as well. Yeah, I know that. I'm not interested in my name in the history books.
Well, you're too late for that, buddy.
Well, if you understand that, I shall leave the rest to you. What? He is proud even for a demon. If you have indeed humiliated him, I doubt he will ever forgive you. It is unlikely that you will defeat him. However, if there is something you wish to protect, then please use the power you have been granted to do so.
In his own stoic way, Hijikata looked as confused as I felt. Could Amagiri be trusted? What were his true intentions?
There is one more thing I must tell you. The power of the Furies is not magic or a gift from the gods. Great strength, lightning speed, and mortal wounds that close themselves. This power was already within you, but had you stayed human, you would have spent it in decades, not minutes. You were only borrowing these things.
Oh! My hands flew to my mouth. By borrowing, did he mean that when Hijikata used the speed and strength of a Fury, he was picking away at his future, his life?
So you're saying that every time I use that stuff, my life gets a little shorter? Yes.
He nodded gravely, and Hijikata gave him a bitter smile.
Well, it makes sense. Seemed too good to be true. Guess it's only natural I have to trade something for this kind of power.
And with no greater protest than that bitter smile, Hijikata accepted the greatest cost of becoming a Fury.
Then, I'll be on my way. Hold on, I want to ask you something. And that is? You sure you want to let us get away? If you don't kill me now, I'm pretty sure I'll end up killing your pal Kazuma.
Amagiri shrugged, his face impassive. No friend of mine.
If you defeat him, then that was all he amounted to. We demons are not sentimental.
I don't know, Kazuma kind of seemed like he was getting a little sentimental with me in his own route at the end there. Then, with a last polite nod, he disappeared into the night. And not to mention Sen seemed kind of concerned about me, and that seemed a little sentimental. His enemy gone at last, Hijikata slumped and took a long deep breath. Hijikata, are you alright?
Yeah, fine. Where's Kondo?
Over there. Hijikata nodded and ran over to the chief.
Kondo, are you okay? Are you hurt?
He looked as if he had seen a ghost. Hijikata stood before him, his white hair and red eyes bright in the moonlight. A fury.
Toshi, you... Oh.
Hijikata started, and then looked away, almost guiltily. Kondo stared at him for a moment before asking in a soft, stunned voice.
Are you... a fury? Yeah. I didn't have a choice, alright. It was for the Shinsengumi.
For a moment, he sounded very composed, but as I peered closer, I realized that he was desperately avoiding Kondo's gaze. He couldn't bear to look his friend in the eye. We were silent for several moments, and when the first raindrop hit me, it took me by surprise.
Oh, it's starting to rain. Looks like we've got to get back to Edo and start reorganizing. We need to discuss our next move.
Right. Come on, Kondo, we have to hurry. I turned to make sure Kondo was following, but he simply stood there, as if he'd forgotten how to walk. Kondo? Is something wrong? It began to rain harder, and still Kondo didn't move. Rain ran down his cheeks to his chin, or were they tears?
What? What have I been doing? Today I sent young men who trusted me into battle. They died. And I've made you, a man I've known for years, into a fury, a monster. Kondo, what is this? No one blames you. It doesn't matter how great of a tactician you are. Swords can't beat guns. I made bad calls too at Tobufushimi, and it got Gen and Yamazaki killed. Defeat is in the past. We can't change it now. What we can do is turn around and win the next time, right? Besides, I don't regret becoming a fury. Hell, I'm stronger and faster than I ever was, and I can use that to help you out. Nothing would make me happier than that.
Not to mention he'd already be dead if he hadn't taken it anyway. Rain poured down their faces. Surely it was my imagination, but for a moment it almost looked as though Hijikata was crying. Kondo stared at him for a long moment, then finally drew himself up.
I apologize. I was being foolish. Forget what I said.
Something in his voice told me that even he didn't quite believe that. Chapter 6. You just can't joke around much in these. They're so sad. March 1868. They had their moments, but not many. We returned to Edo and met up with Nagakura and the rest of our forces at the Hatamoto mansion. Kondo was disconsolate from his first lost battle, more so than most of the captains had expected. Even after he returned to headquarters, he spent most of his time moping. Yoshinobu, the supreme commander of the shogunate army, was ordered out of the imperial court and into house arrest at Kane Temple in Ueno. The imperial court was now in the hands of the Satsuma and the Choshu, and it was becoming painfully clear that the loyalist faction was in a numerically untenable position. Sometime later, I was sweeping the entrance when I looked up to see Saito on his way out. "Oh, Saito, are you off to work? Have a good day."
"When you have a moment, could you make some of your delicious tea and take it to the commander?"
"That's my specialty." Without even waiting for me to respond, he gave a curt nod and was off. I miss you, Saito. I think I've decided he's my favorite in this game because I really love the strong, silent, stoic type. Oh, I don't know, then again I really love Harada too because he was just so darling and protective. I don't know, I'll think about this after I finish the game. Saito had never been talkative, but lately he seemed exceptionally taciturn. Perhaps he was still upset over what had happened. Which part of what had happened? Are you guys really leaving? Ah, that part.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but we made up our minds. Our path isn't Kondo's. I don't think we can follow him anymore.
Oh, it's going to be lonely here without you. What are you going to do now?
We haven't quite figured that out yet. We'll still be taking it to the Imperial Army. That's not going to change. I'm sure you'll be hearing stories in a couple months about how we killed 100 rebels apiece. Heck, probably a couple weeks. Well, take care.
Okay, you too. I hate partings. We'd been so close. It was sad to see them go. Then again, I'd only known them for a few years. How sad their departure had to be for Kondo, Hijikata, and Saito, who'd known them much, much longer. Okita's condition worsened, and he'd been moved to a separate house in Sendagaya. One by one, our friends from Shie Hall were disappearing. Why had it come to this, I wondered? That's life. Cleaning suddenly felt particularly pointless. I decided to go make some tea and see if Hijikata was in his room. Hijikata, I bought you some tea. I opened the door as I spoke, and stopped halfway in when I saw Sanan and Heisuke. Fury meeting? All three faces were set in hard lines. Whatever I had interrupted, it was serious. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were in the middle of a meeting. Let me go make some more tea. I began to back away as quickly as I could when...
You can stay.
His words froze me in place, but before I could reply, Sanan spoke.
You can't possibly be serious about this. Why would you cancel augmentation of the Fury Core? I am serious. There won't be any more Furies. Make do with what you have. I'm sorry, but I can't support your decision. The Shinsengumi's manpower is at an all-time low. It seems to me that expanding the Fury Core should be a top priority.
But how can you ensure their loyalty?
Heisuke told me that Nagakura and Harada had left. That's a serious blow to us, Hijikata. Even if we can recruit more warriors, they'll just be more rabble. As soon as they're sent into battle, they'll flee.
And what makes you think Furies will be better? They might switch sides just as easily.
Wasting our energy on men like that is foolish. Don't you think that it would be better to concentrate our efforts on expanding and improving the Furies?
Heisuke looked down at the floor. He'd said nothing since I'd arrived, but it was clear from his face that Fury or not, he didn't always agree with Sanan.
You have a point. If all we want to do is increase our strength, then the fastest way to do that is focus on the Fury Core. Then why do you... There's a problem with the Furies, a big one. We only just found out about it. Our source is reliable.
He meant to tell Sanan what we learned from Amagiri.
The power of a Fury comes from your, I guess you could say, potential. Basically, the more you use it, the shorter your life gets. What?
Sanan's eyes, usually so cool and calculating, went wide as saucers behind his glasses.
Yeah, we shouldn't be using the Furies unless we really have to.
The color had drained from his face. Silence filled the room for several long seconds before Sanan finally raised his head and spoke. Then, that is yet another reason why our research should continue. It is a flaw, yes, and a serious one. But with more research, we may find a way to circumvent it, or even counteract it entirely. As a Fury yourself, surely you understand the necessity. Hijikata's expression didn't change.
This is not a request, Sanan. This is an order. As your commander, I'm telling you that the research on the Furies will stop. There will be no more Furies.
Sanan said nothing, instead simply glared at Hijikata as seconds stretched into minutes.
Let's go, Sanan.
He sat unmoving for a few more moments, until at last he sagged, defeated, and turned to Heisuke.
Very well.
Sanan and Heisuke turned to leave the room when...
Oh, Kondo. What are you doing here? Going somewhere?
No. I'm just out for a walk. Just passing by, don't mind me.
Were you eavesdropping, boss? I heard them exchange a few short pleasantries in the hallway, and then 3 sets of footsteps faded away. Is it just me and Hijikata now? The room grew awkwardly silent. Hijikata sighed and let his gaze drift out the window. The tea's cold now. I'll go pour you a new one. I stood to leave, desperate to be away from that room and its stifling atmosphere.
No, this is fine. I'm thirsty. Cold tea's perfect.
He took a sip and sighed again, quietly, a distant look in his eyes. The workload he'd taken on was tremendous, and he was tired all day, every day, but he looked drained, more so than those things could account for. How hard had Nagakura and Harada's departure hit him?
He's right about Shinpachi and Harada leaving. That hurts bad.
His voice shook almost imperceptibly, and his mouth curled into a bitter smile as he spoke.
Well, I had a feeling this might happen someday. It's our own fault for falling short of what they wanted. If what we're fighting for and what they're fighting for aren't the same thing, then why wouldn't they leave? You don't need to let feelings or loyalty tie you down.
Oh.
It's over now, and that's fine. They'll be alright on their own, so will we.
I got the feeling that Hijikata's words were more for himself than for me.
But damn, we sure have lost a lot of people. Things are different.
His eyes were focused on something far away, and his voice had dropped to little more than a mumble. I couldn't even imagine what was going through his head. To be a leader and command the loyalty and obedience of tens or hundreds of men was something I couldn't begin to understand. Every night he worked until the sun came up. It was painful for the Furies to be up and about during the daylight hours, but that didn't stop Hijikata. Every day he met with representatives of the shogunate. Even I could see the horrible toll it was taking on his body. What could I do for him? We have to tell him to stop. Stop ruining your life. Please, Hijikata, you have to stop. His eyes snapped back into focus and swiveled to stare into mine.
What?
His voice was much harder than I'd expected, and it gave me pause. No, I thought to myself, this was something I had to say. I'm only telling you to do what you told Sanan to do a few minutes ago. Don't use your Fury abilities unless it's an emergency. His eyes narrowed. That's not eye-narrowing, that's just plain old glaring.
Why should I listen to you?
'Cause I'm the woman in this relationship. Well... His glare was unnerving. Well, you became a Fury because you were protecting me from Kazuma. If you hadn't had to fight a demon, then you'd still be a human now. You wouldn't have to...
This again. Look, I told you I chose to do this. Nobody forced me.
Honestly, if it hadn't been for Chizuru, it would have happened sooner or later anyway.
Stop worrying about that stuff.
He sounded quite calm and nonchalant, as if he'd already accepted his approaching death. But was that really true, or only an act he'd put on to ease my mind? Who could ever be at peace with bargaining away their life, no matter what sort of power such a bargain might grant them? And when you say things like that, it just makes it worse. If you're in pain, please just say so. Can't you just tell me the truth? Don't you wish you'd never become a fury? For a moment, the room was silent, and then Hijikata began to laugh.
Man, I just can't win with you, can I? You really are an Edo girl, aren't you?
I was rather stunned. Laughter and levity certainly hadn't been the reaction I'd expected.
I think I've told you this before, haven't I? Anyway, I'm the youngest kid in my family. They're farmers in Tama. My mom and dad both died when I was still young. That meant my sister, who's about 4 years older than me, had to raise me. You sound kind of like her. Soji's sister Mitsu sounds the same way too.
Oh, that's right, we only got to hear about her once.
When you go off, it's like I'm getting scolded by my family. Makes me feel like I've got to listen to you.
Aha! So I have a little bit of leverage here. Really? I'd never heard him talk about his childhood like this before. It felt surreal.
If what Amagiri told us is true, and so long as I don't use my fury powers, I'll be fine, right? If it gets bad, I'll tell you. Stop worrying about me.
He'd likely still keep most of his pain to himself, and that was just who he was. But if it really meant that he would tell me when it became unbearable... Alright, I understand. I'd take his word for it, this time. So, what would the Shinsengumi be doing now?
Well, we're going to need to get Kondo back on his feet first, but after that we plan on heading north.
North? He nodded slowly.
Right now, the shogunate's about to be as useful as tits on a bull, but we've still got the northeast. If Aizu and Sendai could hold the center, then we've still got a chance. Dr. Matsumoto is rounding up some men, weapons, and ammunition for us at Nagarayama. We'll meet up there and head to Aizu. Even if the rebels manage to take Edo, they'll probably have to fall back to Kyoto eventually. Once they do that, we could take Edo pretty...
Suddenly his body twisted and hunched, and he grasped a hand to his suddenly heaving chest. Hijikata's eyes bulged from his head in pain, and he'd begun to sweat, hundreds of tiny beads appearing all over his face. Hijikata, what's wrong? He only shook his head, unable to speak through the pain. I'd seen him like this before. Is it the bloodlust? He didn't respond, but I'd known I was right even as I asked. And here's where I gotta save. And I'm following the completion guide for all the images. So let's see, this time we have to make my poor baby endure it. Hijikata, are you okay?
Calm down.
Sweat rolled down his face as he yelled.
This'll pass in a minute. It's not a big deal.
But...
Just shut up and get out. And don't let anyone in. You got it?
It was torture to leave him when he was in so much pain, but it seemed his pride wouldn't allow him to be seen that way. Alright, I'm going. I bowed and left Hijikata alone in his room.
Damn it. I will not give in.
Long minutes ticked past as I listened to Hijikata writhe and scream in his room. I felt so ashamed. There was nothing I could do for him. Was it right for me to leave him be? Or was there something I could have done? Something I hadn't thought of? Worries and doubts swirled through my mind, and I slept little that night. Some time after that incident, we moved again to the Kaneko mansion in Nagarayama. Kondo had become reluctant to go into battle, but after several talks with Hijikata, he was eventually convinced otherwise. Until we'd finished our preparations for our journey to Aizu, we would be training in Nagarayama. I was told Saito was off in some place called Ichikawa, where he would be training in the use of some new modern armament. Sanan and Heisuke had left with the Fury Corps along the Utsunomiya route to Aizu, since they couldn't go to the Kaneko mansion. Ever since we'd arrived, Kondo had seemed like an entirely different person, listless and without any kind of drive, so we haven't helped him at all yet. His days were spent in his room, reading books or on the porch staring at his flowers. I think he's retired. It was easy to see that he was depressed about his loss at Kofu. Eventually he would get over it and go back to his normal cheerful self. Or at least, that was what we all hoped. Kondo, I bought you some tea. I set down the tea and snacks I bought on his reading table.
Oh, thank you.
He paused in the act of flipping a page to smile up at me. What are you reading?
Oh, I'm reading The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the biography of Kiyomasa, military history basically. I practically know them by heart by now, but every time I read them I find something new to be fascinated by. When I was young, I wanted to be just like Kansei Teikun, a legendary warrior. I wanted to fight for someone other than myself.
His grin made his face look like that of a little boy, but after a moment the grin faded.
But I guess dreaming about being a great commander doesn't make you one. I wish I'd realized that a little earlier.
He shut the book softly and set it down on top of his desk. What are you talking about? You've only just begun. But he didn't even seem to hear me.
How's Toshi?
I think he's up in his room writing something. Probably orders for Saito. He's off in Ichikawa right now, you know. Kondo's head sagged toward his chest.
Oh, I keep giving Toshi so much to do.
I don't think he's pushing himself too hard. And nothing makes him happier than being able to help you out. That's just the kind of guy he is. Kondo laughed.
You really turned out to be quite an asset to him, haven't you? I think you know him quite well by now.
You think so? He seemed quite serious about it, and I felt my cheeks getting warm. That's right. Back when I first got here, I was supposed to be his page or something.
Oh, yes. I never thought you'd be here for so long, to be honest.
Before I knew it, we were reminiscing about the time we'd spent in Kyoto. Back then, we never could have guessed that the Satsuma Choshu alliance would take control of the imperial court. Okita had been healthy, Inoue and Yamazaki had been alive, and Nagakura and Harada hadn't left. The good old days again. Every day was fun and exciting. But I know things will work out. Hijikata will get us through this. He responded with a melancholy laugh.
Don't you think you're asking quite a bit of him, Yukimura?
What do you mean? Before he could answer, the door slid open with a snap, and Hijikata and Shimada ran in, their faces tense and drawn. Hijikata? What's happened?
We gotta go now. The mansion's surrounded.
Hijikata was out of breath. They must have been running. What?
There are 2, maybe 300 of them out there. We came in through the back so they wouldn't spot us. If there were only 20 or 30 of them, then maybe we could take them.
Hijikata worked his lips and glanced out the window, frustrated and tense.
Don't even have time to call back Saito and his men. Guess we'll have to come up with something here. Shimada, Chizuru, you two take Kondo and go on ahead.
Is this where Sanan betrays us? What? Hijikata, not even you can take on that many people, and it's daytime out there.
I won't know till I try. Hijikata, the soldiers out there are all riflemen.
Both Shimada and I moved toward the door in an effort to physically stop Hijikata if it came to that. Kondo had stayed silent and contemplative until Hijikata and Shimada had entered, but now he finally spoke.
Wait. Toshi, you don't have to do that. I'll go have them take me to their headquarters.
Hijikata's expression cycled quickly from shock to disbelief to anger.
What the hell? You might as well just paint a target on your chest. I wouldn't introduce myself as Kondo with the Shinsengumi, of course. I'll just tell them we're Hatamoto, and we're here to secure this location. That ought to make them think twice about it for a bit. At any rate, it should buy enough time for you guys to get away.
Shimada and I were both shocked into silence, but not Hijikata.
Listen to yourself. Do you really think they'll let you just waltz in and mess with them like that? You saw how they work back in Kyoto. There's no way in hell those bastards don't hate our guts. They won't believe that crap about us being Hatamoto for a second. Well, even if we do get captured, I have the status of a daimyo. They can't just kill me. You've got to be kidding me. You think they'll give a crap about a title you got from the old shogun? You go out there, You're signing your death warrant. You really think I'll just let you do that? Look, I'm a fury now. So long as they don't shoot me through the heart, I'll be fine.
No matter what Hijikata said, Kondo's expression didn't change. He only gazed back at him, his expression cool and placid.
I've made my decision. Nothing you say can convince me otherwise.
Hijikata began to shake. In all the time I'd been with the Shinsengumi, I'd never seen Hijikata and Kondo act like this before. Usually it was Hijikata who kept a cool head, and Kondo who succumbed to his emotions. But this time...
No! No! What the hell's the Shinsengumi going to do without its chief? You're coming with me, even if I have to knock you out and drag you. You have a responsibility to the Shinsengumi. You don't get to die and run away from that.
Hijikata was screaming at Kondo, with his white-knuckled fists gripping the front of the other man's kimono, and his eyes red with held-back tears. But his fury and pleas broke across Kondo's impassable calm like so much wind against a mountain.
This is the direct order. You will go to Ichikawa to meet with the rest of our men, and Yukimura and Shimada will go with you.
Hijikata stumbled back a step, shocked by the force of Kondo's voice.
You're going to tell me what to do? What the hell is this?
His eyes were still dry, but his voice trembled.
Aren't your chief's orders absolute? You've ordered plenty of men to kill themselves, or become furies from disobeying that rule. But you're somehow an exception. Is that the sort of warrior you want to be?
Hijikata said nothing. As long as he'd been commander, Hijikata had strove to lead by example. He lived by the code, and demanded that others do likewise so that the Shinsengumi might have true samurai. No doubt Kondo had counted on that fact. He meant for us to keep Hijikata alive. Both of them trying to save each other.
Shimada, Yukimura, I want you to leave with Toshi.
And here we're going to stop this video. Partly because we need to because of time, and partly because my dog has been going crazy. She really needs to be let outside apparently. Alright, so, hope to see you in the next video or in some of my other ones, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye bye everybody.